Well, build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers Week at Hibs in association with Leeds Spirits and May.
Hello, I'm Colin.
Did you forget that you were doing an enthusiastic intro there?
No, was that not enthusiastic enough?
That was, it works.
There was a momentary delay.
Nah, I was thinking I'm going to say the sponsored versus in association with one again, but I think I covered that last week.
You did.
We're just rotating it, obviously.
I felt the introduction was too long for me this time, because it was the Longbangers, the week at Hibs, then get the sponsor in. I actually was about halfway through going, fuck this, but I managed to get it all out in the right order. We'll take that.
Do you know, it took that long that I've actually forgotten it already. I've genuinely, it's gone from my memory.
Do you know what I was thinking about earlier? So the main podcast that I listen to when I'm not listening to Hibs ones is Top Flight Time Machine, and they just get wired right into it like we do, pretty much. But there's some podcasts out there that sort of the host does a wee bit at the start, kind of saying, "Oh, hello, like this is the week at Hibs." In today's episode, you'll hear us talk about VAR, and then in the next bit we'll talk about stadium developments, and then you might hear us talk about the Scottish Cup draw, and then there'll be a wee jingle and a bit of elevator music and that, and then they'll get into the podcast. And I thought,
why did they do that?
I don't know, fuck doing that. Like,
can you imagine that they've got like the bog standard PowerPoint presentation template with the agenda on it, the agenda points for the meeting?
That's what it would be like, and I'm just like, I can't. It's extra recording, and we're already do too much, so that's a no. But then I forget by the end of it. I forget what we've talked about. Like every week when we go to like I publish the episodes, and I'll try to write what we've talked about, and I'm like, fuck no. So anybody who looks at the descriptions of the podcasts on YouTube or on your podcast player, they're generic as fuck. Like, I mean, there is zero detail for what we've actually talked about.
They might think it's this week's news when it was last week's news.
Yeah, that can happen as well. Because obviously this does go out a week behind for folk who don't subscribe. So if you're listening to this next week, right, and today's date is the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening to this on the 22nd, you're not a subscriber, and this will all seem out of date. But if you're a subscriber, you'll be listening to it this week, and it will be relevant, which is fine. Right. So there was not a lot happening with Hibs this week, which is the other thing to point out. If up till this morning we were sort of scrabbling around going, "What Scottish Cup draw? Fuck, what else has happened?" There was nothing in like the
just desperate for like something to happen.
Nothing in the news.
Get beat. If we'd got beat or something, there's always stories.
But as luck would have it, there was a VAR review done, which we will talk about. That doesn't directly impact Hibs. We're not quoted in it, but I think it's important to talk about it. And then Hibs announced all the improvements or changes that are coming to the stadium. So we've got season ticket prices, we've got safe standing, we've got a new bar behind the goals, we've got a move to the disabled area, or in addition to the disabled area, and also to a new family section coming in, which we shall speak at. So we might not talk about the draw because we did cover that a wee bit on Monday when we recorded it, and we covered it an extra time on Wednesday or Tuesday whenever you listen to it.
We're flogging a dead horse while we just sack it.
Fuck the draw. Right.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Right. So let's get into VAR then, Colin. I know you spent a good bit of time before we started recording tonight reviewing the topic.
I'm moving to the end of it, yeah.
I tried to drag that out as long as I could so you keep reading.
I know, but I was focusing on no yawning right after the comment that was made as well. So I just think it's amazing. Do you want me to say something about it? Are you going to ask me something about it?
Just
generally the point of our podcast.
Go in and get wired in. What was your takeaway from it?
My takeaway is that we're not even on it. We sit here every week and moan about a VAR call that's no went our way, or that we didn't get assessed on or anything, and not one of the 13 decisions involve us.
Do you think they've taken the feedback? You know, the first round of fixtures, they said there was 3, and everyone went fuck off, and they went, we can't get away with 3 anymore. How many was it really? And they've gone, There's about 30 odds here. We can't go. That's too far the other way. Just meet in the middle, and they've picked 13 out as a number. So they've got who
So
can
it's almost one a team, almost.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. But
Is it one a
obviously,
team apart from us? Let's have a look.
but will I
I'm
go?
just
Will I go through them?
Could I steal Colin's thunder and perhaps yours, Matty? Just the bit that caught my eye was that the panel who reviewed these decisions made up of former players, managers, and coaches, in quotes, guided by experts in the laws of the game. I'm thinking that sounds like the sports scene panel of token ex-Rangers and Celtic players.
Yeah.
It's like who are they? Like, would it not
Would it make a difference
would
to
it
you if
not
you
give
knew who it
more
was?
transparency to the process to actually name who these people are? Or are you deliberately keeping them
Well, what
anonymous
difference does it make?
to make it seem impartial?
But is it no then if you know names, then people deliberately then say it isn't impartial, no matter what. So they've just been asked for an opinion, right, with no name against it. So you could have a ex-Celtic player there saying, aye, that the referee should have looked at the fucking monitor before he gave the
Well, they
offside
want each
decision.
owner, definitely.
Right.
Like, they're not going
Aye.
to just have one Celtic and no Rangers or vice versa. They definitely want each of them.
But you know what football fans are like, right? It doesn't matter. Like everybody thinks that if somebody's against them,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's every team. Like I know it was always Celtic. They got the conspiracy and all that, but every team thinks there's a conspiracy against them. Like because you see it like with Radio Scotland and that. Like I think Radio Scotland's shite because I think it's shite. I didn't say it because it's biased, but loads of folk, if you read it, they read the message boards and that, it's because they all hate us. And I think if you don't know who it is, does it no make it like is it no more? Should we no be more be going? Aye, that was a fucking shocker of decision that Alan Forrest one, rather than go. I bet it was fucking ex player Neil McCann that went and decided that.
Aye.
Like it's the decision that matters, not the person that done it.
Unless you have doubts about the person doing it.
Aye, but then if you don't know who it is, you can't help. Can you get what I mean? If you have, that's the only reason you have doubts because you go, you fucking plays for Hearts.
I think there's probably pros and cons to both approaches because if you didn't ken it, it leaves it up to the imagination, doesn't it? Where you go, well, it's probably. And the other thing is, when they say guided by the experts of the game, that will be folk who ken the actual rules. You know how like when we listen to Sports Sound and that, and they'll talk about something, you're going, fucking hell, that's basic like that.
It's not deliberate. Or
Aye.
what was the one that we were going on about the other week? And you're going, that's not the fucking rule.
Aye.
It was actually that Celtic one with the handball. When then they're saying they got it wrong because they never checked the VAR. They never sent it to the monitor to then say it was offside. They were saying that there was all different variations of the handball rule. For the last 10 years, kind of was changed. And they were all going, well, it's that one, it's this one, it's that one. What's the fucking current rule? That's the one you want to be quoting.
And things like clear and obvious for offside, where it's like this clear and obvious doesn't come into it. There's all these things, but you can imagine
it maybe needs to be our VAR though, because some of that offside last night, the offside we got against us in the semi-final, and then there's been other ones, but the other one I remember was Melkerson.
Oh, aye, that
Melkerson.
one too. Aye.
And you think, well, it's no obvious because you can't zoom in anymore because you've not got enough cameras to get the best stats. So you just need to go with onside for that because you can't tell.
Yeah.
The margin for error's too big.
13 sound like that's like a reasonable amount to be getting wrong.
So that's since November by the looks of this.
Yes, it's the second round of fixtures, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, so it's the second round of fixtures. So how many games is in that?
Well, it definitely includes up to like the New Year games.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think how many games that would be because that would give you a sort of percentage, wouldn't it? Like off.
So 27th of January and 24th of January, there's games for then included. So it's pretty much up to the games that have just been played.
So I don't know how many games that is, but I mean 13. I don't think that. I don't think it should be that high. And it shouldn't be. Like I think we're watching it. We know it is, and it's probably higher based on we've probably called it 13 Hibs ones.
Yep.
On the podcast. Not getting like the 2 in the Celtic game last week. which might not be. They might be in the next batch, I suppose. But the Boyle one and even the head knock one, like these ones that. So three last week that you go. Were they right? But so it shouldn't be 13 though, because that's why the fucking telly's there to stop mistakes.
And you look at some of them, like when we've seen them on TV, and know that I'd want to sort of highlight an injustice for them, right? The Alan Forrest one was should have been a penalty. That's another one, the penalty where the boy got absolutely booted, and you think we can see that as punters. How are referees in the VAR with the time to kind of go and look at these decisions?
Is that the Boyce one that's in the list?
So
The boot to the face?
Aye.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure he got booked for it as well, did he not?
For diving,
it doesn't matter. Like I mean, but there's the Rangers one at penalty at Livingston where the boy dived.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And you just think how do you have 13 of those? Because none of them are jumping out as being like
difficult.
Borderline. Aye, difficult is probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
John, what do you think? What do you think to learn for this review?
I don't know. I've still got a cynical hat on, because one of the questions that Colin asked there was the number of games in the second round of fixtures, and I'm looking at the end of the article, and it's saying that across the first two, that's the first 2 rounds of games, there's been 785 VAR reviews. And I was thinking if the reviews that they've concluded included games up to and including the 27th of January, that's about 3 weeks. And I was thinking that's about 38 decisions that this panel of experts have reviewed every day for the last 3 weeks. It's probably about half of that, because I'm going to say 785 divided by 2 across the 2 rounds of fixtures. So that means that this panel of experts have been convening for the last 3 weeks, reviewing 20 decisions. Does that seem feasible?
Well, this was the next question I had, which was, what's in scope for the review? Have they watched every game for the rounds of fixtures and then look to see, as they're doing it, listening to the VAR audio to review what was said and what was seen? Because that to me would be the only way where you could say, like, that's how many times VAR got involved, right? So, for example, if our game against Celtic on Wednesday night wasn't in scope for the review, so they maybe take a sample and they give us half of the games, and we'll do it for that, which is fair enough, because it's very rare that you do 100% audit on something, especially if it's like really, really time intensive, which this would have been. But the way they've positioned it is they've looked at every decision, and I'm like, oh, have they ever watched every game and gone back through the 90 minutes? And you look at some of the ones that are missing, like Goldson fucking kung fu kicking the Livingston player for Rangers' first goal, and that was just last week or the week before. How can that not be included in the review as a mental decision, because it was so obvious?
Yeah.
So
is it where the way I took it, right, and because I never properly read it, but I thought it was maybe reviewing VAR decisions that went to VAR. So, like, here's ones that actually went to VAR. Go and have a look and tell me if they were right or wrong, rather than ones that didn't go to VAR that maybe should have, like the handball against Celtic.
But so they say across the first 2 rounds of games, there's been 785 VAR reviews, with the majority silent checks requiring no intervention. So have they checked across the 2 reviews? Have they checked all 785 VAR?
Does read like that.
Fair play to them. But
shouldn't take that long, should it? 785.
But then,
how many was the panel? Did it say? Did you say the number earlier?
It just said it was. Hold on, I guess because it
doesn't say how many people were on it. It just says the panel made up of former players, managers, and coaches.
Guided by experts in the laws of the game. But again, it doesn't tell you, like, if you're reviewing all the times that there was a VAR review, whether there was an intervention or not. What about when VAR didn't get involved when it should have done? Like, I don't know. I think it would be good if they made clear the scope of the review, whether it was 100% audit or whether it was a sample size that they took it from. And either's fine, but
that doesn't tell the error rate. That just tells you the number, eh? Like, is that 13 out of 13, or is it 13 out of 800? Again, or is it 13 out of fucking 10,000?
And it would maybe explain why some teams are included and some aren't as well. Because I mean, there's nothing there, and it just blows my mind to think that somebody's watched your games and gone, "VAR's been right." All of them.
Playing devil's advocate again, how do you go about improving it? VAR, the perception of transparency, going back to the point that Colin made at the start about whether you know the names or not, whether it's independent or not. Because from my perspective, you've got, and this touches, I think, on the conspiracy that most football fans feel. There's 2 clubs in Scotland that have won something like 80% of all league titles from the day Scottish football kicked off. And it feels ingrained within Scottish football and culture that referees aren't impartial, but then you have this system that's designed to make them more accountable, and you still have the same things going on. So how do you improve that?
I think you just have to get some kind of neutrality to it. Like, I don't know if it's even allowed though. Like, you didn't have Scottish referees. Make it neutral. Or I wonder if you didn't know who the VAR was. If we're saying they're no biased, right? Because I'm not convinced they're biased. I think they're scared, or running scared. The Rangers and Celtic, the abuse they get, the abuse their family gets. I'm watching that miners' strike. You watch the miners' strike programmes on Channel 4?
No, I know yet.
Excellent, right? And you're seeing like the families of scabs walking down the street with the bairns to school, and they're just getting abuse. And that's what I see, like Nick Walsh's wife and that walking to school, kind of if they didn't get the penalty to Celtic.
Nick Walsh when he's in Costa.
Aye. So, but it's like that. And I think, well, if you didn't know who the VAR was, then we would probably get all conspiracy theory about it. But actually, I wonder if you would see a better result on it because they're no in fear of getting their windies tanned.
Do you think we should maybe? Do you think Scottish football would be open to the idea of the masked referee? Like something like the Masked Singer, so they just reveal themselves at the end.
Aye, I know. Take it off everything like that. But no, I just think the referee can't do that, right? So the referee just has to be what he is and get called out for what he is if he's just blatantly no give something. But if you've got VAR there to correct him, but nobody knows who the VAR is, then, I mean, of course, what would happen is they would get that decision in the Old Firm game there that's in that list. The Rangers fans, Celtic fans, whatever way it went, would be demanding the name of the VAR. Like, because they've done that before. Mind, I think Ali McCoist gave the name out at one point when he was a manager, and everyone went mental because they were fucking storming the streets and that. And that's why they're living in fear of no giving the hard decisions against them. So if you didn't know who they were, I wonder if it would help. Short of bringing in the foreigners, like for wherever we could, if we're allowed.
I don't mean like knowing who they are, and it's having that accountability on the back of it. But I think reviews like this are important, but make them. And they'll say they've made it public, but to make the whole thing public, like publish a report, put it on the SFA website for anybody who wants to go and be boring enough to pick through it page by page, point by point.
Celtic Rangers fans, that because they'd be going, look, what about that one though? Mind, there was that one 10 years ago where.
But you should be able to demonstrate an improvement because the whole point of an exercise like this is you then on the back is you get everybody involved in those wrong decisions. You review them, you talk through why they're wrong, you train them. And then you hope to then make those mistakes in the next round of fixtures. So you should see over time a downward trend in the number of errors that are getting made. Also, with like the use of VAR improving, which it should do year on year as everybody gets used to it. So the thing is combining should over time, and they're not going to get rid of it. Let's face it, it's here to stay. But that would be how you build trust in it is to kind of keep the transparency, make it really open, and show a downward trend in the errors. You didn't want it going up, and if it's going up, then you'd be going, fuck, he's dead. But maybe it needs to go up in the first place, like it's going from 3 to 13, but 3 was ridiculous. Like when they come out with that, that's that's everybody circling the wagons in the SFA going, fucking, we can't go out with how many it really was. We'll just say 3, and everyone's going, fuck off. So we've got a bit more realistic this time, but I still think it's no quite. There'll be loads of borderline ones. They've done the first draft and they've gone out, we've got 50 odds, like Are there any there that we can go back to and say, like, was it right or maybe borderline, and we'll find them in favour of it being right, just to build that trust. Anyway, that's probably enough on.
It is mental though, just to say that we're not in there and that Hibs haven't made any fucking deal about Boyle getting booked last week when he clearly fell over theatrically, but did get touched to fall down. So
Yeah.
that's not a dive. Whether you can argue it's a penalty, it's not a fucking dive. So we should have been out there getting that overturned. We say fuck all about it, and that'll be why they just went, well, they didn't fucking care. So because they're the ones that all got, a lot of them got made a lot of noise at the time.
Aye.
And we didn't make any noise about it. We didn't give a fuck. We just say, I do whatever you want and just put up with it. And then we didn't even get listed in the errors.
They're just like, they're just a by the by, aren't we? I definitely would like to see Hibs make their noise about it. Again, we spoke about it before. That, not just that, kind of a whole host of other things that Hibs stay quiet on that we'd love to see us come out on the front foot with. But that's for another time. Right, the changes to the stadium. So Hibs came out with a tweet this afternoon with a wee update to say that there are some changes happening in the stadium, most notably in the famous five, but there's sort of impact some other areas of the ground. Right, so the first one, safe standing, we've talked about before. They did show like a stadium plan. I was going to say a seating plan, but it's not if it's standing up. A stadium plan where you could see it was like a sort of T shape, wasn't it, with the bit behind the goals, and then sort of across the back rows of the bottom tier are going to be for standing. Any surprises there, or was that what you were expecting it to look like?
I didn't think they would do the full stand. I thought they would start with a bit, because when they've had the chance to do their trials and that, it's just been that wee box pretty much that they're in. So I didn't expect it to be the whole stand yet. Obviously, if they can build it and they will come. Was that Field of Dreams?
Field of Dreams,
that thing.
You seen a film, Colin?
I've seen that film.
Excellent.
Aye, so they might get away with. They might be able to expand it, but they had this. I didn't think they were going to empty it in the first place.
John, they're moving the family section. That's going across to the east stand. East stand, famous five end. I think they said they wanted to keep it away for the away support, which is probably sensible. But they're not making it. I think the rule just now is if you're in the family section of the famous 5-4, you need to buy an under-13 ticket. Now that requirement's not there, so it's just going to be a family section open for, I suppose, folk who are over 13 as well. Any thoughts on the family section moving there?
I could just say no, couldn't I?
You could definitely just
Is it
say
at the
no.
bronze seats? Are they getting the bronze seats right at the end?
Aye, I think it is. I think it was, pretty much the bronze ones.
No one, I don't think, or in my time supporting Hibs, one of the things that I've seen is that people or supporters seem to be reluctant to change anything. So I'm sure we talked about it on Longbangers before, where we've said like that people have this fixation about their seat and where they sit. Like, and it's, to be fair, like I've definitely had that sort of thing myself, where I used to like to get the same train and I'd go like walk the same route to the round, and it makes absolutely no difference, but it's something that's quite a personal thing. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the family section in the famous five lower, where it was previously, it was quite sparsely populated on match day. So hopefully they change to the east, and there's probably going to be like teething problems like everything else. But if nothing else, it's Hibs making a positive move to try and make a positive impact, or Hibs making a move to try and make a positive impact, and hopefully we can see the results of it.
Can you move anywhere? Or if you're in the famous five, or can you say I'll go in the west, or do you have to take the seats in the east?
You can move anywhere. I think it's open. They opened up renewals early for those folk who are displaced as well.
So just saying, if you want a family section, it's there, but have a fucking seat wherever you like.
Aye, go wherever there's
so
a free
does that
seat.
mean then that if you currently have a season ticket within the proposed family section, that you're having to move somewhere else?
No, so I think the only people who are properly displaced are those that are where the safe standing is going to be, or like so if you take the famous five lower, and that what was the family section, I think those seats are now up for grabs for anybody who wants to go in. And if you're in one of those seats, you've got first dibs on the available seats elsewhere in the stadium. They won't be able to go in and take like your seat, for example, or my seat. It would have to be, 3 seats that are not currently occupied.
On the shite ones that are left over.
Aye, but they've got first dibs on them. Does that make sense?
I'm confused. How do you create a family section then, but not impact other people if you're moving them from one part of the ground to the other?
So I think what you're saying is, like, if you sit where the new family section is going to be, it's that thing, but it's not like we said you have to have an under 13, so you're not going to be asked to move. It's when you can decide whether you want to stay there or whether you want to move to a bit where it's not going to have young kids in it. You could move to the other part of the ground if you want to, but you won't be mandated to move.
Does that seem like a reasonable compromise? A reasonable approach for Hibs, you think?
Aye, I suppose what else can you do? There was the demand for it to get in behind the goals, to fill it for the TV, for the boys to have a sing-song and get the flags out and that. So folk have got to move, I suppose. The folk that have got kids, I used to sit in there with my daughter, my eldest, when she was wee. And it would have been in the section, I think, banging behind the goals. That was where I used to sit. So I would have been getting moved. I don't know if I would have moved to the bronze in the east, like, because it's a wee bit like you're not even in line with the corner flag. You're behind it. You're actually you're staring along where the subs warm up. So I don't think it's great seats they're moving to, but you can move anywhere. So
and I think I quite like the idea that it's no only a family section as well, because I think we saw with the famous five lower, even in the big games, that looked empty. Like loads of times you kind of go in, you're going. There was always stories about folk buying a couple under 13 tickets, so they've got the client reference numbers for semi-finals and finals or derbies, etc. So I suppose it probably stops that a little bit as well, and hopefully gets more people into the stadium that want to see the game, because you can't necessarily resell those seats in the current setup. The behind the goals coming back as well, so I think there's an option for an £800 season ticket, which as well as a comfy seat in the famous five upper, would also get you a reserve table and access to the bar before and after the games. Sort of like the Albion bar type idea, I think, but behind the goals. What do you think about that, Colin?
Well, the Albion bar and 2 coffee. I think somebody said earlier on that there's a waiting list of maybe 200 for the Albion bar, so they could easily just say, "Do you want it there?" Although that's not quite how I read it. It's like you can buy a £800 season ticket, but you can't buy just the whatever they've got to call behind the goals. I don't know if they just called it that again.
Behind the goals. I think it's saying that.
So you can't just say, "I'll give me the £250 top up for the behind the goals." You can't just buy that and then say, "Well, I'll sit over in the east." So it's a wee bit different. £800 feels dear, but that's how much it is, I suppose, for folk that are buying their season ticket and an Albion bar top up. That's just what it is. It's £450 for a season ticket and £250 for the Albion. So it feels dear to me. Like I take the kids. They're definitely one kid now, but and it's full price for a kid. You didn't get you didn't get any concession on that. So £250 for a bairn to go behind the goals wouldn't be value for me. But folk that have the Albion seem to really like it, and it does seem to be if you're going for a beer before the game and after it, it's good.
John, would you take advantage of it?
I don't know. The reason I don't know is just because of time constraints for me at the moment. Like, still doing a degree, and I've got a wee one who does like dance classes, and it's not feasible at the moment for me to be spending upwards of 8 hours away on a Saturday. That being said, like I did have the Albion pass when it first came out, and I've got that FOMO, the fear of missing out, because there's a load of folk that we all know that go in there before the game. And I can see the appeal of it from Hibs, because that was one of those kind of reluctance to change things was the Albion. You know, it was introduced and it was largely poo-pooed by people saying, like, why the fuck are you paying to get into a bar? But as Colin mentioned, there's a waiting list there of upwards of 200 folks. So the appeal is there. And you would imagine, and I was thinking about the logistics of it, because in the main stand, you have people who people who go to the Albion who don't sit in the main stand. So they've got people coming in and out, which could represent lost income to them ultimately. So if Hibs can manage that and have people who go behind the goals, they get the revenue from them, who just go into their seat in the famous five and presumably have to pass the bar on the way back out, maybe they can keep them there for that kind of thing. So it's good. I think it's people have been saying that behind the goals has been missing for a while, and it fell into disrepair, I think, under Dempster's tenure. I think fans would have preferred seeing it back as being like a sort of regular entry rather than a paid for thing. But like we've talked about, the Black Knight stuff, the financial fair play, the need for increased revenue at Hibs to go and buy better players. So it's a hard act to balance, isn't it?
When it was the behind the goal, so when it was free though. Anyway, it was total hit and miss. You know the way it was done.
It wasn't particularly good when I was last time. Like it was, it was like shitey. I know this is going to sound poor, but it was like shitey tellies. It was like the old 14-inch Grundigs, like attached to the wall. The food was like just kind of lying on a table.
It was just somebody to pass the time. You'd end up going in and standing leaning against the wall because, like, folk were in for opening, grabbing their same tables. Where at least now you get a reserved seat. And so if you buy it, you get a table. Whereas before, I always thought it was a bit hit and miss. I was there a few times, but I was never that impressed with it.
I think there's definitely room in the setup for a free entry bar for folk who just want to walk up. Like I think Hibs miss a trick with that. And you do say, like, does that devalue the paid for proposition? Then if you have that available, like, why would you spend 800 quid if you could take your chances on a free bar? But I think that thing we have
450. It's only 800 because you've got a season ticket. So
yeah, okay, yeah. 350 and 450 is 800.
Well, right. So I was just thinking
Rachel Riley and Carol Bodeman.
So it is, mate. I was thinking that. So the Albion prices will be going up next season.
By the looks at it, if that's a taster for it.
I was just thinking it was the same price. Right. So I'd never done the maths. I just
they're slightly different propositions. So I think Hibs would argue the famous 5 one you could charge a bit more because of the padded seat, because you can go straight for the bar to your seat, but you didn't get the Albion bar necessarily, because you might be around in East Terrace or whatever. So the Albion bar, I wouldn't assume that they'll go up by the same price, but it's 350. But if there was a free bar, how many folk are going to take up what would then become like an expensive option just for a reserve table? And I think it's harder to manage the standards on a free bar, as we saw with old behind the goals, like with folk just coming in season ticket only. You didn't care if it's going to be quiet or busy, whether you would be waiting 20 minutes for a pint or 2 minutes for one. So I'm sure that I think there's room for it, but it would just have to be managed carefully. It would be something I'd quite like to see, because like sometimes you just fancy a pint, but you maybe then kind of go every week because you have a car or circumstances dictate, whatever. So interesting. It would be interesting to see what the take up is, and I have no doubt that it will sell out. Given what happened with the Albion bar, like you said, John, everybody sort of rubbished the idea and thought, who's going to fucking pay that? And then it sold out rapid, and the folk that go love it, and there's a waiting list. So I can imagine it's going to be the same for this one. Right, we're out of time, which was no bad going. We had nothing to talk about this morning. So well done, Colin, well done, John. Well done, Hibs, for and VAR for giving us stuff to talk about. If you're listening to this next week, go and subscribe, and you would have got this when it was relevant. There's loads of different ways that you can subscribe now. You can do it on Patreon, you can do it on Hubwave, which we've always been able to do. You can now do it straight on YouTube as well, if you're somebody who watches the podcast as well. We're told it is a challenging wank, but possible. So you can get it there as well, ad-free as well. So if you didn't like the adverts, you can get it there. Straight for YouTube as well. You can get us on TikTok and Twitter and all these things now as well, which we're trying to make a wee bit present. So if you're on these things, I didn't understand it yet, just try to fucking find my way about it. But check us out there. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water, no